This video is going to show us how to do facial proportions and facial shading to draw a portrait. So we're going to start with the facial proportions first. Now, we want to draw the shape of the head to get started. It doesn't have to be perfect, but I want you to notice that it's an oval shape. And when we draw portraits, we often want to include the hair, the neck, and a little bit of the shoulders in the shirt. So I'm going to start by making that shape. You can make it in the air a couple times before you put your pencil down. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect. We're going to go back and fix it later. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put my line of symmetry down the middle of my face because our faces are symmetrical. They're equal on the left and right side. So that line is going to help me with that. Now, when we look for the placement of the features, we're going to look at the head from the top of it to the bottom of the chin. And I want you to notice that the eyes are actually halfway in between the top of the head and the bottom of the chin. So we can make another line halfway down our head to place those eyes. Now, halfway in between that eye line and the bottom of the chin is actually where the nose falls. So we're going to make another line that separates the bottom section in half once more. And then the line that the mouth is on falls halfway in between the bottom of the nose and the chin. So we're going to separate that last section in half one more time. Now, most of this up here is actually forehead and hair, and the hair comes out of the hairline. We'll deal with that a little bit more later on. But now I'm going to go and do the eyes. So the length of each eye, about 5 eye lengths can fit across from one side of the head to the other, so you can kind of use that as a proportional device. I'm turned a little bit to the side in this picture, but you can also think about it as if there were one eye width in between the two eyes. So we're going to separate that eye line into about 5 equal sections, and we're pretending that the symmetry line doesn't count just for a second, so don't let that confuse you. It's about 5 equal sections from the left to the right. Now, in terms of how to draw that eye shape, it's sort of like an almond or lemon or a football for the overall shape of it, with a circle in the center and also a little black dot in the middle of that. So we're going to take that shape and put it in the correct place according to our guidelines. They don't have to be exactly the same. Don't worry about that part. You can also put a little eyelid on there. Now for the nose. The nose is a little tough because it's not like the eyes or the mouth where it's a different color from the skin around it. It's the same. So what we have to do is we have to draw some little lines to sort of represent the shape of the nose and kind of give it a little bit of dimension. What I don't want to see is a little triangle, scarecrow, Animal Crossing nose. Here's a little trick for how to draw the nose shape. So if you think of 2 parentheses, and then if you think of 2 sort of upside down parentheses, and connect those 2 together, that kind of makes a little easy nose shape. You can draw a little line for the kind of the tip of the nose. All right, so now we have to put this shape on our nose line, but how wide do we make it? Well, the outside corners of the nose line up with the inside corners of the eyes. So we can make some little guidelines coming down from the inside corner of our eyes, and that will figure out about how wide to make the nose. That will help us figure it out. So put those little parentheses in, but you can even do sort of a little shape up at the top. All right, now for the mouth. So the lips or the mouth is usually like a stretched out letter M at the top, or like a seagull, I guess, kind of too. Stretched out letter U at the bottom. And they are separated by a sort of straight line. So we're going to take that shape and place it on our mouth line. But once again, how wide do we make it? Well, the outside corners of the mouth line up with the middle of the eyes. So if we make another set of guidelines coming down from the middle of the eyes, that's going to help us to figure out the approximate width of the mouth. So we'll take that shape and place it kind of where we made our guidelines. You can also do the little Cupid's bow shape if you'd like to do too. Now my eyebrows are gonna be kind of covered up by my hair, but I will show you how to do them. The overall shape of the eyebrows are like a skinny rectangle and then kind of a little arched triangle. You can kind of fill it in with the little hairs, make the shape look a little bit more imperfect so it looks like the eyebrows. And for the opposite brow, it's gonna be the opposite, like a mirror image of that, so that the rectangle's towards the middle and the triangles are towards the outside. So for the placement of the eyebrows, it's about one eye height above the eye. It's not way up in the forehead, not way down on the eye either. The inside of the eyebrows line up with the inside corner of the eye. And if you draw a diagonal from the outside corner of your nose to the outside corner of your eye, that kind of tells you how far over to put it. If that confuses you, you can kind of just eyeball it a little bit. It doesn't have to be super perfect. Okay, so we're going to put those shapes where we've made our guidelines using our rectangle and a triangle. All right, now at this point I have all my facial features in, so I'm actually going to go back and kind of fix that initial head shape that I made. Just kind of refine it a little bit more. And you can't see my ears, but I'll show you where to put them in case you have short hair and you can see your ears. So the tops of the ears line up with the eyes, and the bottom of the ears line up with the nose. And the ears go away from us, they're flat against our head, so you only see sort of a little bit of them. And then for the neck, again, it's a little hard to see because my hair is covering it, but the neck lines up with the outside corner of the eyes. So if you draw guidelines coming down and kind of taper the edge of the neck, that will help you to place where that is. And then for our shoulders go right off the edge of the page most of the time. Don't make these little tiny shoulders. Sometimes people do that when they're first starting out. The shoulders are wider than you think. They go right to the edge. You can kind of put the neckline on there if you would like. All right, now we're going to erase these guidelines before we start to refine and do our shading, because the guidelines aren't part of our final piece. They're just to help us put things in the right spot. And I'm just going to do kind of a little sort of basic outline of the hair. I'm going to deal with it more later when we get to shading, but I'm just kind of trying to get the overall shape of it at this point. And just refining a couple little things like the eyes so they stand out a little bit more. All right, so now we have our proportions set, and now we're going to do the shading. So I've taken this photo and put it into grayscale so it's a little bit easier to see the values. The light source is coming straight on, so unfortunately there's not a whole lot of contrast on my face, but you can see some areas that are a little bit darker or more in shadow. And then there are some areas that are lighter or in highlight. What I want you to see though, is if we take this white paper towel and we compare it to my skin tone, the skin is actually, it's a very light gray value. So almost everything on this portrait is gonna have a little bit of a tone or a little bit of a value to it. It's not just gonna be plain white. And then if we look at the black of this marker and we compare it to the dark value that my hair is, you notice it gets almost to be black. So there's a lot of contrast present. When we shade, we're going to start gradually, kind of work over the whole thing. I want you to hold your pencil from the back edge when you're shading. Okay, now look at this here. So I just have a little bit of shading on this at this point, and it looks a little weird. The reason I'm showing you is because a lot of kids kind of get nervous and they stop at this point, but you've got to push through this. It's going to become contextualized when you get shading on the whole thing. So just kind of fight through that and trust that it's not going to look weird when you put shading on the whole thing. So we definitely want to give tone to our eyes and to our mouth so that they stand out from the skin around them. Even if you have light eyes, they'll be a little bit darker than your skin usually. Okay, so there's most of my shading completed. That's what you can see what it looks like. I sped that up a lot. It took at least probably 5 minutes. All right, so remember, we aren't looking for a photograph, we're looking for a likeness. Follow the proportions and modify them to suit you. Adding hairstyles, accessories, etc. will help your work to start to look more like you. It's like if you're creating an avatar in a game, your character will resemble you, but not look 100% the same. Portrait drawing is not easy, but practice makes progress. You can use this knowledge about facial proportions and shading to help you draw portraits of yourself, family and friends, celebrities, or even create your own characters. Observing from life or a photo is important, but using this information will help your work be easier for your viewer to understand.